Today on the Ave Podcast, you'll see the name of this episode. It's self-explanatory. It explains itself. John Gruden stepped down under a mist of controversy due to his wide-ranging and problematic emails that touched on all the classics: racism, sexism, homophobia, porn, or at least soft porn worthy. If this email chain were an album, it would have gone, I would say, quadruple platinum on the foolishness level. And I don't even want to let this week pass without talking about it. So here we are. South Shore is available wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen, rate, review, and subscribe and share. Hit the like button, the favorite button. Leave comments wherever you can leave them. And wherever you see those 5 stars, to give those ratings, just know that I deserve it. You know it, and I know it. And also check out SouthShoreAve.com for all of my shows. Once again, that's SouthShoreAve.com. It's the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast. Today I'm joined by my South Shore Ave family member / football ringer when it comes to the NFL. Please welcome back Roger Calendar to the show. How you doing today?
Not too bad, sir. Not too bad.
Let's get into this, man. John Gruden, your thoughts?
Oh my God.
well, before you even answer, let me just paint the picture quick, just for people who might not know. He had a stream of emails released. I guess this is a friend of his, Bruce Allen, who at the time was the former GM of the Washington Redskins, now the Washington football team. It came out during the investigation against the team. The email span chain, or whatever you want to call this, lasted over 7 years, many of which were not just racist, but homophobic and sexist, which in turn, John made the decision to walk away from the Raiders 4 years into a $100 million contract. Okay, now what's your thoughts?
Oh my God. I don't even know what to say at this point, man. I mean, those are 7 years worth of emails, disparaging emails against pretty much every minority you could possibly count, or at least the major ones. He talked about gays. He talked about the first gay man, Michael Sam, to play in the NFL, to get drafted into the NFL. He used disparaging anti-gay remarks against Goodell. He talked about DeMaurice Smith, said basically that his lips look like 2 giant tires. And those are just 3 emails. So, there was a lot more than just that. They just haven't talked about it as of yet. But good riddance, man. He got what he deserved.
So I know I was saying this before, but how I found out about this was, we all saw the news of that initial email that came about DeMaurice Smith on Sunday, right?
Right.
It was like Sunday during the press conference or whatever, he discussed it, and I'll give my opinions on my views of that presser, a little bit later. But I Thanksgiving, being that we're in Canada, Thanksgiving officially was yesterday, and I'm at my family's house, in-laws eating dinner and stuff. So I came home, I didn't know all this was going on. So so last night, because we basically are pivoting from the original pod episode I wanted to do in terms of the topics and stuff, because I was like, oh yeah, shoot, let's talk about Gruden tomorrow too, not even knowing all this was happening in terms of him getting fired, or stepping down or whatever you want to call it, and everything just blowing up. So it's like when I put the TV on and stuff, I'm like, wait, what? And then I started reading more articles and more pieces and stuff, more think pieces and opinionated pieces, like op-eds and stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, we might have to just talk about this tomorrow. Going into more depth. But it's sad to say that I wasn't. I was shocked that he stepped down, because I was like, yo, what the heck happened? But then once you read it, you're just like, okay, yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Well, absolutely. And it all started off. It all started off with just this one email where he was describing DeMaurice Smith, right? When I heard that and I watched the press conference, I was like, okay, I said it was bad, but I said, you know what, it's probably survivable. But then I got to thinking in my head, I'm like, it's not just one email. It's never just one email.
It's never just one. It's like a Pringles chip.
Never. Exactly. And then also, what also tipped me off is whenever you hear somebody say, I don't have a racist bone in my body.
Oh, my God.
That's when you really have to say, okay, you know what? You're pushing it a little too much. And that really set me off. I was like, and I told everybody, even people in the chats, I was like, just wait, there's more coming. I know there's more coming because it's just not one email. So, I mean, I don't know what to say. I can't say I'm surprised. And I'll be honest with you. I think if you look at a lot of the emails going back and forth with a lot of the other football teams, I'm sure you'll find similar things as well. So, I mean, I think he was just, he just got caught up in an investigation that had absolutely nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
And, he got his finger stuck in the cookie jar. Pretty much that's it.
Talk about karma biting you right in the ass.
Absolutely.
You're
100%.
But it's so funny, though, because when anybody says, what is the word again? The I don't have a racist bone in my body. You're almost inclined to believe that, yeah, you probably have some racist skeletons in your closet.
Absolutely. 100%. I put that on the level of, I have black friends.
Yep.
Or, well, my maid is black and, we're really good friends.
My best friend is black.
My best friend is black. Exactly. That says it all to me. I don't need to hear anything else after that.
And what does a racist bone look like? Does it look like a thigh bone? Does it like your forearm bone? Is it a shoulder blade? What does it look? What does a racist bone resemble?
Calvin, that is a great question, man. That is a great question. Like I said, man, I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. I mean, what he's saying, he's probably said a lot worse things to other people, like vocally said it. It's just these emails just happen to come out on light, and unfortunately, like he would have probably have survived it if it had just been that one email where he was talking about DeMaurice Smith, and he was, people were accusing him to be a racist. You know what? A lot of people came out and said, that's not him. It's not his personality. I think he would have been able to survive that. But then when he started talking about the homosexuality, making the barbs about Goodall, and then the sexist comments about the cheerleaders, I was like, okay, that's it. That's just way too much. Like, at this point, you're a distraction. And how are you going to stand in front of your team when pretty much half of your team is black? And I think he also has a gay player on his team as well.
That's right. He does. Yeah, I believe so. The center, right? Or one of the offensive linemen, I believe. Yeah,
he came out. I think he came out like 2 years ago. Yeah. And everybody was like, great.
Yeah, he's still on the team, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's a little hard for you to have any sort of credibility in that locker room when you know that these comments have been that these emails have been exposed. And you know what? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more that haven't even. I think it was actually the New York Times that somebody gave the emails to the New York Times, and they're the ones that came out with a full disclosure. Like, the NFL is the one who released the first one about DeMaurice Smith, but I think it was the New York Times that came out and they're the ones that discovered all the rest of them about the homosexuality comments and the sexist comments and so on. So they're the ones that blew the lid wide open on this.
Once you hear the New York Times has written a piece about you that you weren't participating in, it's never a good look. It's never a good thing in life. When the Washington Times, any one of those papers, if there's like an op-ed or just something when it's like, wait a minute, I never spoke to them. You're like, shit, call my lawyer, call my manager.
Time to call the PR team, 100%.
100,000%. Now, you know what? I want to take it back a little bit, though, right? I want to kind of, and you could interject and jump in when you want to jump in, but I want to kind of take this back. I want to peel back the audience a little bit on my opinion of Gruden, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like with Gruden, I liked him when he was with the Raiders, the first time, like back in the late '90s, early 2000s. What was it? The Tuck Rule Raiders, you know what I mean? Like when he was on that team. Like, I didn't mind him then. I actually didn't mind him then. When he took the Tampa job, though, Raj, it bothered me because, look, I mean, let's face it, I'm black.
Yeah. So am I.
Right? And I like Tony Dungy, right? Not just because he was black, but he was, people, I don't know if people will remember this. Well, not everybody remembers this, but the Tampa Bay Bucks for most of my youth were pretty much, they were like the Clippers of the NFL. They were like the shittiest team ever with their creamsicle uniforms. They were always trash. It didn't matter what it was, video games, Tecmo Bowl, early Madden, didn't matter. Just didn't matter. They're just always trash. They were always garbage, always trash. But he took that team from nothing, and he made the Bucks who they were, with so many Hall of Famers on that defense, with Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks and John Lynch and the Barber twins. Like, they had so many good players on defense. I still remember that time when they I think it was the Rams' first time when they won the Super Bowl. But I don't know if you remember that game, but like, I swear the score was like probably one of the most low scoring games they ever had in that Greatest Show on Turf era. And a lot of it was because of that defense. They just completely discombobulated that offense. It's the only reason why they survived was just they really had nothing offensively. Like, they just had nothing offensive to match up with them. But I think I forget what the score was, but it was really low scoring. That I remember. And I think I remember the Rams getting like a fluke touchdown, and they ended up kind of just surviving that game. But it was testament to Tony Dungy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, so when he was let go and Gruden came in and opened things up a little bit, and then they won the Super Bowl the next year, I felt bad for Dungy because, you're saying this offline, he was like a year late. He got let go a year early, right?
Yep, sure.
And Gruden, to his credit, he opened things up a little bit offensively. They challenged things a little bit. They weren't so conservative offensively, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. The defense was basically untouched. It stayed the same.
Right, absolutely.
But I also felt like I started feeling like, I don't know, I started looking at Gruden sideways, mostly because I felt like once he won, he really, at that point, it's like that great white hope thing. He really could do no wrong after that. You know what I mean? Like, because I remember he had the moniker, he was Chucky, the scary, tough son of a bitch coach, with this whole tough persona. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wanted to mess with Chucky, the short coach. Meanwhile, I remember hearing stories about when he'd go into the weight room and he could barely lift a plate. He was struggling to even lift like half a plate or a plate, but he was like the toughest guy. Like, it was comical. Like, that was his whole persona,
Right.
And then I remember at one point he ended up being rated as one of the, I think it was the People magazine. Yeah, so it's People magazine. They come up with the most beautiful people in the world, and he made that list. And I remember thinking, like, yo, what is going on here? Yeah, I'm like, yo, what the fuck is going on here? and it's just, what? But a large part of it, I didn't care about about that tagline of him being the most beautiful, but I just didn't like where things were going, because you could see how the media was just propping him up to be on this pedestal as this like elite godsend type coach, and his teams pretty much, and you can Google this, whoever's listening, you can Google this. The records of his teams pretty much after they won the Super Bowl, they were very mediocre.
Absolutely, 100%.
Until he got fired, right?
Yeah.
So it's like other than that year, and you can say like, yeah, he basically was driving Dungy's car, but he never maintained it. You know what I mean? Like, he never did the oil change. He never changed the spark plugs. You know what I'm saying? Like, the transmission fluid was always running low. Like, this is how we kind of treated the team afterwards. They were always mediocre.
Absolutely.
They were always mediocre. And then after that, he gets canned, and then he gets the dream announcing job, which is Monday Night Football.
Yep.
And then shortly after, he was one of the highest paid announcers, if not the highest paid announcer in sports. And don't get me wrong, he was good. I'll give him that. He was good. But was he that good?
He wasn't. He wasn't that good. No. You know what? I thought he was passable, to be honest with you. I don't know. He was at the time when he first started off with the Raiders back in, I think it was 1999. Like, he was known to be a hard-nosed coach, right? Mm-hmm. He had that reputation. Tony Dungy, the year before, I think it was like 2002, Tampa had a good team. They had a really, really good defense, right? Yeah. They did go to the playoffs, but I'm pretty sure they got knocked out of the playoffs. Gruden moved on to Tampa Bay. He basically took over a playoff-worthy team from Tony Dungy, and he made some tweaks on the offense. The offense still wasn't really that good, to be honest with you.
They weren't.
They still had a no-name quarterback. I think his name was like Sean King or something like that at the time.
No, it was oh my gosh, what was his name? You know what? They replaced him with oh my gosh, he used to quarterback on Minnesota.
Wait, did he play also on the Raiders? It wasn't
he
Jeff.
Did. He did.
What's his name?
I'm gonna Google it while you're talking. I'm gonna Google it. Keep going.
It's going to come to me. Yeah. Anyways, so he basically took Tony Dungy's team. He made a few tweaks, and they won a Super Bowl, and good for them. After that, though, if I remember correctly, they never made the playoffs after that. Mm-hmm. You know, he took a cushy job at ESPN, as you mentioned, and I thought he was okay. I mean, I didn't think he wasn't like Tony Romo, how Tony Romo kind of took over the announcer job, and Romo's making like $20 million. He was no Romo, that's for sure. Yeah. He was okay, and I think it's because he's a coach, and obviously he has really good knowledge of the NFL and how the different teams play and so on, right? I thought he was okay. I was really shocked when Mark Davis actually brought him back to the Raiders, and that contract that he signed, the 10-year, $100 million contract, that blew my mind, because I was like, this guy is straight off the streets. He hasn't coached in 10 years, and you're going to put him in charge of your team. Like, he was literally like, the best way I could describe him is, instead of going with an MP3 player, you're basically getting a cassette tape, and you're trying to shove it into a CD player. Mm-hmm. Like, he's just old school.
Yeah, you're right.
I didn't think he would be able to relate to any of the players of today. He comes from an era where it's like, college football, you guys do what I tell you. Nobody asks me questions. And you could tell even from the moves that he made when he first came in. When he first came into the Raiders, what was the first thing he did, Calvin? He got rid of the best Khalil Mack, the best defensive end. I'm not sure. Is he a defensive end or a line?
Oh, that's right.
That's Khalil Mack. Yes. He got his first thing was Khalil Mack was trying to get a contract. They were trying to renew him. And instead, he decided that, you know what? I don't like Khalil Mack. I'm just going to let him go. And I'm just going to reform the defense without Khalil Mack. And for 2 years, it was a huge, huge mess. I even remember that first year when they got rid of Khalil Mack and they traded him to Chicago. About a month, maybe 2 months later, he said, "Oh, we could really need a pass rusher. Pass rushers don't grow on trees." That's what this man said.
I remember that.
I was like, "Are you flipping kidding me? You had the best pass rusher in the league at the time, and you basically traded him for I think it was 2 first-round picks or something like that." Mm-hmm. So
and the first-round picks ended up just being okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So he's done a lot of questionable things, and the Raiders are having a good season this year. But I mean, to be honest with you, I think the Raiders are kind of overrated just because of the talent that they played against. Yeah. Aside from this year, they haven't had a really good record in the past couple of years. They haven't even made the playoffs in the past 4 years where he's been the coach. And he's basically been getting rid of players, bringing players in, and it's a mess, man. It's a mess. Personally, I think this whole thing, I think this whole, this whole incident with the emails, I think it's a blessing for the Raiders. I think that they do have a good team, but I just think that they need a better coach. And being able to get from underneath that 10-year, $100 million contract, I think it's a blessing for them, man. I think Mark Davis is, doing his little jig right now because he's like, this wasn't working, but I'm locked into a 10-year contract and I have to pay this man. And it's like now he has the opportunity to go out there and get a real coach, get somebody who could actually coach his team.
But here's the thing though too, and I agree with everything you said. I think the full autonomy of running the roster to me is where even back then you're like, how is John Gruden getting full run of any franchise like this? Like I'm like, yeah, he did the Monday Night Football. I'm not saying he can't go back and coach,
right?
You know what I mean, or get another chance to coach. That's fine, but to be like you're running everything,
yeah.
I'm like, what did this guy do that he could be running everything?
I
You know
don't
what I mean?
know.
I'm like Bill Parcells. That's for like Bill Parcells. If Belichick ever leaves the Patriots and wants to go another team, you give him the opportunity to run everything. It may
Yeah.
fall. It may like be like a Phil Jackson situation with the Knicks and be like a disaster. But he at least deserves the opportunity. You know what I mean? If he wants to run a whole
Absolutely.
franchise, okay, sure. Even Pete Carroll, with all the success that he had in Seattle, if he decides to leave somewhere and and they want to give him full autonomy, okay, because he had a great run of success for a while, on
He did.
top of winning. So okay, that can work.
Hmm.
But I'm like, yo, this guy hasn't been a coach in like 6-7 years.
Hmm.
And on top of that, up until from 2004 going up until he got fired, he was mediocre at best.
Exactly.
So, like, how does this
Exactly.
guy get? I mean, at the first thing I thought, of course, is I'm like, it's just the Raiders being the Raiders. But then I'm like, but I don't care, like if he was the last good coach there, there's no reason why you should be like, like I know Bill Parcells used to say this thing where, you get the shot for the groceries. Like, there's no way he should be put in the cupboard.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you deserve that. Like, not just because you win. Like, you got to win if you're gonna win one, you got to have like maybe like a 60-70 win percentage or something. You know what I mean? Like, to
Agreed.
sustain that, to be like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe if you give this guy full autonomy, it's okay. Where all the decisions are going through him, we can kind of run with that. Like, the only coaches that have that is like in sports. You're thinking Belichick. You're thinking
Yep.
Coach Popovich with San Antonio. But
Yep.
those guys have won at least 5 rings. You know what I mean? You understand where that's coming from.
Oh, for sure.
But one and Monday Night Football, like I never knew Monday Night Football could that like the windfall from that could be so amazing.
You know what? I think it's just familiarity with the Davis family. Um, Al Davis loved Gruden. He loved Gruden. Gruden was his guy. He was basically his right hand man during that time. And Mark Davis, who was his son, grew up watching that. And what I think is, fast forward 12, 13 years later, he decided to go with Gruden because he knew Gruden and he trusted Gruden. That's the only reason why you would give somebody a $10 million contract. $10 million a year contract for 10 years, right?
Right.
There has to be more than just pedigree there, right? That says more of a relationship than anything else. I mean, Belichick doesn't even have. I don't even think Belichick's contract is that solid.
No.
Like, who the hell gives somebody a 10-year contract for $10 million a year, and he hasn't coached in about, I think it was like 10 years. I'm not even sure, but he hasn't coached in like 10 years. Who does that?
Like, this wasn't Vince Lombardi. You know what I
No,
mean?
it wasn't. No. He won one Super Bowl. He won one flipping Super Bowl, and that was his first year in Tampa Bay. But aside from that, it's not like he doesn't have the pedigree of the Belichicks, or of the Belichicks of the world, or even the Coach Popovich. Nothing like that. So I mean, that just screams to me like familiarity, maybe even a little privilege there. He knew the right people. He was part of that family. He was probably whispering in Mark Davis's ears for years about possibly coaching the team, and then the opportunity arises, and he took it.
Now, it's funny because the one where you just said there, a little bit of privilege. I would remove the word little and replace it with lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a lot. Because, it's interesting because, like, and I get everything you're saying. I get that in terms of him being the coach of the team. I get all that. That's fine. As we know, like in sports, a lot of this stuff is relationship based, right? If you have a great relationship with an owner or somebody that's running a team, there's a good chance you could probably get in there if you want to get in there and go that route. You're going to get what you want to get, based on the type of relationships you have. So I totally understand all that part of it. But running the whole team, you know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing. That comes with power and privilege based on how he was propped up for the last decade and a half before that. So for somebody like him, like, I'm sorry, he's been feeding off that reputation for years, for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
So like, to me, when the news drops this weekend, like, I can't sit here and say that I'm stunned because it just reeks of somebody with power and privilege, especially when you're looking at those emails. Like, I think I was even asking you last night, like, yo, was he even coaching at the time of these emails? 'Cause I couldn't even quite remember. I'm like, was he coaching or was he still in the booth?
Yeah.
So when
that's
you're like,
the
he's in the
crazy part.
booth, I'm just like, I just started laughing because I'm like, at that point, like, why do you even give a shit about DeMaurice Smith
Exactly.
or Goodell? Like, you know what I mean?
Yep. No, I get it. And I don't disagree with you. I mean, but then again, when I think about the NFL in general, look at some of the coaching decisions that have happened within the past, let's say, 5 years. Owners pick coaches that they feel comfortable with. And usually it's people who look like them. You know, there's a reason why, last year, even though, there was like 5 or 6 different NFL coach vacancies that actually happened. I think there was only one person of color that was actually hired. Even though I could name at least 3, maybe 4 guys that at least should have gotten an interview at least.
Like,
so I mean,
like Bieniemy still hasn't gotten the job yet.
No, he didn't. Did he even get an interview? I don't even think he got an interview,
I'm not
Calvin.
Sure if he did last year. No, I'm not even sure if he did.
Which absolutely blows my mind. But I mean, I think this is just how it goes. This is how business is done with the NFL, unfortunately. So I mean, I'm not surprised that they picked him. From a business perspective, nobody would give somebody a 10-year, unless it's soccer or something. Then they kind of give those type of contracts out to the best players, right? Mm-hmm. But Goodell is not Goodell. Sorry, Gruden. He didn't deserve that contract. He shouldn't even be coaching in the NFL. Period, if you ask me. So yeah, he got taken down.
And I think too, because even though he wasn't a coach, because of the position he was in at that time when he was in the booth, he's still such a influential figure just based on the job, the attention that job gets, the persona that he has, and then what he's getting paid in the booth. It's like those emails are going to hold weight. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, to me, the arrogance to even send that to that man's work email address, I mean, and for that length of time too, like for the course of 7 years, it's comical. Like, I mean, listen, I'm sure there's worse thing that's been said in other areas, but like just for like work etiquette 101, like even if. Like, I know, Roger, like, me and you are going to have a private conversation. I'm not going to send that to your work email address.
Of course not.
Like, you have a Google account. You have a Yahoo. You might have a Hotmail still. I don't know. But but you know what I mean? But if we're going to have these kind of conversations, whatever the conversation is, once it's past a certain level of etiquette that you want to get in your work email, we're going to have that on our private email. Like, it's just
Absolutely.
simple etiquette. Like, just don't say wild shit on that. Like, I'm not gonna say wild shit on your work email address. I'm gonna just keep it like straight and simple. Hey, Roger, we're still meeting up for lunch? Cool. Hey, Roger, did you get the file? Okay. Can you get this appointment for me? Okay, cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna talk to you about like, yo, you saw that Instagram chick on? Oh my God, on the Shade Room? We're not gonna talk about that.
Yeah, you would think that would be common sense, Calvin, but common sense is not so common. And he obviously thought, like, it never even crossed his mind that he would ever get outed for something like this. Even though in the real world, somebody would not be sending those type of emails through their business email. They wouldn't, because most people have more common sense than that. But you know what? He thought he was invincible, and unfortunately, now he's out of a job. Rightfully so, too.
Yeah, and it's funny because on the other side of the coin too, right? We're all opinionated, right? Mm-hmm. And we all have things that we say about other people too. That's just the way of life.
Yeah.
But if people can get nabbed on the things that they say in chat groups or emails to their friends, everybody in society should be scared.
Absolutely, 100%.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
We should all be scared. And don't get me wrong, like the emails, like in terms of losing your job or getting reprimanded on your emails, that's been happening for a while now. Like there's a story that I used to live next door. My next door neighbor where I used to live, just probably like early mid 2000s. He was applying for a job, right? He was applying for this job. He was still in university. He was a really smart guy, a really smart kid at the time, and he was applying for this job, and he sent this email, did the interview and stuff, and gave them his email address or what have you, right? So I think he might have forwarded his resume, whatever, right? Actually, okay. So let me rephrase that. He didn't even do I don't think he did I can't remember if he did the interview or not, but either way, the person who received his email, right, for his resume, sent the email, coworker, right, saying, "Look at this ghetto dude right here because of his name," not realizing his name was still was still CC'd.
Oh wow.
And ended up
Big no.
and I think they got, I don't know if they ended up getting fired, but I know they definitely got reprimanded because it ended up being like on the news, it ended up being on the Toronto Star. Like
Wow.
it ended up being like a whole big thing. So imagine like, somebody's, you send a resume in for your job, and then you're getting a response back, and it's like, look at this Guyanese bastard applying for this job. He thinks he's gonna get in here, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't think this is supposed to be meant for me, dude.
Calvin, I put that on the same level as somebody watching porn on their company laptop.
Yeah, basically.
Like, come on, man. Come on. Somebody's going to be monitoring it at some point in time. Like, seriously. But once again, it's that privilege, He felt like he could say whatever he wanted, and he didn't give a shit.
No.
If he had any sort of common sense at any point, he would have thought, you know what, let me send it from my personal email to his personal email.
Right.
But no, he thought that there was no possible way he would ever get caught. So, he said some horrible, horrible things. And you know what?
Or to even be more frank, like not even the fact that he was going to get caught. Like he just figured he was big enough that even if he was to get caught, it would just get submerged.
True.
Right?
True.
Because, and that's the thing too. Like it's a scary space to be in when you're high profile. Like you have to understand, you can't say anything to everybody on any platform and not think it's going to come back on you. Because to me in this business, especially in the sporting business, public opinion affects the bottom line. And for a man to walk away when he's still owed like basically $60+ million tells you everything right there.
Agreed. I agree completely. I mean, look at the whole cancel culture that's going on right now. People are pulling up emails from people or text or tweets from like 1999, 1985. Like, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But when you're a public figure, you always have to keep that in mind, because at some point in time, somebody might go back and look at some of your stuff, and they could possibly bring it up. Not to say that this is a case. I think this is a case of cancel culture. Not at all. Because, like I said, his email spanned 7 years, and it wasn't as if it was a tweet or anything like that. I think it was just, you know what, you did something really shitty, talking about the NFL, talking about Goodall, talking about the first gay man to ever play the NFL. It came out, and now you're toxic. You're toxic. If they had kept Gruden on, if the Raiders had kept Gruden on there, literally for the next 3 to 4 weeks, all they would be talking about is Gruden's emails.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing about the team. He was a huge, massive distraction. And that was one of the main reasons they had to get rid of him.
Only to me, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is, but you kind of answered it already, is that do you think that he still would have kept his job had it only been about DeMaurice Smith and his big lips? Like that was going to be one of my questions, but I think we both know the answer to that. I think the answer is sad, but it's yes.
Yep.
Because to me, like only to me, obviously, only when it went to the homophobic side and the homophobic comments did it get him get him the axe. Because to me, in this day and age, talking negative about the LGBTQ community, it gets you canceled. It gets you Thanos.
Quick.
You get Thanos.
100%. Quick. One snap and you're gone. And it's actually funny you mentioned that, because over the last weekend, my wife and I sat down and we watched The Closer, the new David Chappelle stand-up comedy show on Netflix.
Right.
And this is something he specifically addressed. One of the things that he mentioned was that he was very impressed with the LGBTQ community, because they've had so much movement in the past couple of years, a lot more movement than the Black community.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot say something that's homophobic, that's, about a trans person without getting canceled and being basically, blacklisted from every party, every show, anything basically out there. So Was I surprised that this was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back? No, not at all. I think he would have been able to survive if it was just a racial aspect of it. 100%. Because there's a lot of racists out there, and basically his friends came out and they said, "Oh, he's not like that, and that's not the Gruden I know," and blah 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 blah. Right? Same old bullshit. But then, when those second set of emails came out where he was talking about and saying how queers shouldn't play in the NFL, I knew at that point that was it. That's it. He wouldn't be able to survive that. He would not be able to survive that. And that's something that David Chappelle brought up. He says he says it, and a lot of people don't like it. And they're trying to cancel him right now for it. But a lot of people are standing up and they're saying no. They're saying no, he's not transphobic. He's not, he's not saying anything against the trans community or the LGBTQ community. He's just giving his opinion, and I share his opinion on a lot of things that he's saying.
Yeah, it's funny because to lend to what you're saying, like it's sad that it doesn't get you fired on your own in terms of just that the Morris Smith comment on its own, right?
Right.
And don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want to act like everyone's perfect and you can't recover from mistakes, right? Like, we're human. It also tells you how far things have to go, because to me, I thought one of the I don't know, I guess at this point now with everything that's happening, it's kind of underrated. But I think, like, to me, one of the most arrogant things I saw was his press conference after the game when they lost on Sunday. Because his whole thing was, he addressed it, he apologized, and he was like, but his stance was kind of like, and I think he even kind of said it, I'm not talking about this anymore. Yeah. I don't want to talk about this anymore. And I remember thinking, my first initial thought when he said that, well, I'm like, wow, that must be a nice feeling. Like, that's a nice feeling when something like this can come out and you're like, I'm not talking about this anymore. I'm going to address this one time and I'm not talking about this anymore. I'm like, that's like a special kind of. I'm like, yo, that's a nice point of privilege to be on.
Yeah.
When something like this is coming to your front door, and you're just like, you know what, I'm gonna address it. I'm sorry. This is something happened, 10 years ago, but I'm not talking about this again. I'm like, wow, you can actually dictate. You can actually dictate how long this gets talked about. And then it was funny because when you watch certain shows, after you made that comment, nobody addressed it. Nobody said, wow, that's kind of arrogant. They just went to the next highlight. Like, nothing happened. I'm just like, holy shit. Like that threw me. So that, like I said, so once I saw the news and all this stuff happening the next day, and he stepped away and he walked away from the contract, I was like, those emails have to have been heavy. But that's the first thing I thought. I'm like, it's a damn shame. I don't think that the Morris Smith thing would have been enough.
No. Like you said, man, it takes a special type of privilege to actually just be able to say, you know what, I'm not talking about this anymore. And people actually listen. That's the thing.
Yeah.
People actually listen. And, I'm not big into this whole cancel culture thing. Like, I'm really not. Like, I believe just because you do something, earlier in your life, or you say something or tweet something earlier in your life, I don't believe that people should be pulling up stuff from 15, 20 years ago, or even 10 years, or 5 or 10 years ago, right? Yeah. Because people grow and they mature. How I was in my teens isn't who I am right now when I was in my 30s. And it's definitely not who I am in my 40s, right? People make mistakes and they're redeemable. Yeah. But I mean, we're talking about a pattern of racist, homophobic, sexist comments over 7 years where he basically bashed his employers, right? Yeah. Because if he's a coach in the Raiders, he's still part of the NFL. You think I can go? I work right now. You think I can go and call my CEO some of the names that he called the president of his company without there being any sort of backlash? Hell no. Hell no. I would be literally fired within probably around 15 minutes. They'd be escorting me out of the building, honestly. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Now, I guess this is probably, one of my, I was going to say one of my last questions, but where do you go from here if you're Mark Davis and you own this team? I want to hear your opinion on this because I have a thought process on this that may trip you up a little.
I don't know. That's a good question, Calvin. That's a very good question. I mean, at this point, they bumped up the interim. They bumped up the assistant coach. So I think he's the interim coach right now. So either way, I believe the interim coach is probably going to play out towards the end of the year. And then I think Mark Davis is going to go out there and he's going to find another coach, probably somebody else that probably doesn't deserve it, like maybe I don't know, Adam Gase or somebody.
No.
And he's going to have them coach the team.
No, don't say those 8 letters ever again in life. No, for the love of God, no, not Adam Gase.
Listen, man, these NFL positions, they're really rarely given to the people that actually deserve it. That's all I can say. So nothing would surprise me at this point. But the Raiders they have a good team. They have a good team. They have David Carr. He's a really good quarterback. They have some really good pieces. They have some decent wide receivers, a few young wide receivers. Their running back is really good. Their O-line, they aren't as good as they've been in the years past, but they're still pretty solid. And their defense, it seems like their defense got a lot better from the past years before. They picked up a few good pieces. So they are a good team, and I think that they would be a good team for somebody to coach, for sure. They would be an attractive team because they do have some really good pieces. So I think he's one coach away from possibly, getting a wild card spot, maybe making the playoffs. I think that's possible.
Okay. That's interesting. Here's another way I'm going to go with this, right? Because this is kind of like, in terms of like the cancel culture, the emails, all that stuff. This is kind of goes along the same ways of the slippery slope aspect of it, right? Like because you gave Gruden this autonomy, right? This ultimate power to basically run the franchise. Forget about like all the other things being said in the emails, right? To me, when you give somebody this kind of autonomy, how does that affect like hiring of staff, of players? Of consulting on other hiring processes that fits the culture, the quote unquote culture. Did those things come into play now? And I'm not even saying that it is, just in terms of if if you're thinking like he's now a racist or he's looking at it through these kind of prisms where where this is how he was hiring, like based on those ideologies as well. But like, so I'm not even saying that this is what he's done, but to me, if you're the Raiders, number one, you're going to have to inspect this with a fine-tooth comb now because of how things played out. It's like, listen, like everything's kind of on the table. You got to research this just to make sure. Were there better candidates for, the director of scouting, that maybe went to somebody else? You know what I mean? Like Mike Madoff was like a GM, right? He's a GM of the team. Like, did he have a part in that as well? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Was there other candidates that might have been better? You know what I mean? Was there a black candidate that was better? Was there a Latinx candidate that was better? A Hispanic candidate that was better? Like, was there? You know what I mean? Like, like these things you gotta like kind of look at. You know what I mean? Like, was there other things in place that affected culture that maybe because you've seen this thing where the Marquette King, the punter, like the flamboyant punter, that used to be dancing and doing all that stuff, but he was a really good punter. Or he was a good punter, for a certain period of time, and he got let go because of personality issues. Now,
exactly. Yep.
I mean, he's a punter. You know what I mean? I don't think he really caused dramatic controversy. He didn't affect games where he was getting penalties and stuff. Like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like all of that to me has to you got to look at that stuff now. It opens up the window for all of these things now. So to me, I'm like that's and then and at least to my. I guess it kind of leads to, a next scenario I'll kind of throw at you here. Like, Mark Davis, he's not Al Davis. Yeah, he was, the son of an NFL owner or like a maverick NFL owner, right?
Yeah.
But he wasn't the guy that lived and breathed the Raider culture like his dad was. You know what I mean? He inherited it, and then, and he's doing what he's done with it, especially he kind of had the maverick spirit in terms of relocating him from Oakland to Vegas. There's people in the Bay that are still mad at that they lost the team, right?
Absolutely.
he doesn't live the lifestyle of the Raiders like his dad was, right? So with the aspect of this happening, you moved into a new arena, new stadium built is beautiful. This is the right time to cash out.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
Okay.
Do I think he will? Do I think he will cash out? No, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I think that the new NFL contract, the TV contract that they just signed, I think it was like last year, they're making money hand over fist. The new stadium that they're playing in right now is the most high tech money making stadium in possibly in the world. I think he's making money either way, hand over fist. And I'll be honest with you, Calvin. Other teams have gone through a lot worse than this. Sure. I mean, look at Houston and their racist owner. They're basically paying Deshaun Watson. How much was it? $35 million, I think. $35 million to sit on the bench right now.
To stay home. He's not even dressing for games. Like, he's literally home.
He's literally at home watching TV, getting paid $34 million a year. Or I think it possibly even is higher. Right? Mm-hmm. And management doesn't want to trade him. He already told them he's not going to play. So they're literally burning through money. And they've put together a patchwork team, which, to be honest with you, they're playing a lot better than what I expected. So I'll give them that. But they're still 1-4. And considering like that GM still has a job, blows my mind. And then with all the stuff that's gone on within the past couple of years with the racism and everything, I think this is survivable. What I'm trying to say is I think it's survivable for Mark Davis. I think he just needs to find he just needs to find a good coach, and I think they'll be okay because at the end of the day, Raiders, they're playing in the LA market, and with the new TV deal and everything that's going on right now,
the West Coast market, not the LA market, because they're in Vegas, right?
Sorry, the West Coast market. Yeah, I apologize. The West Coast market. I think they're making money. He's making money hand over fist. So I think he's good. Well, and like I said before, there's a lot of teams that have gone through worse, and they're still around.
Yeah, in terms of him, in terms of the PR hit for Mark Davis, he's fine, and that's not the reason why I'm saying that. So the reason why I'm saying that is because when he inherited the team, we have this perception that every owner is a multi-billionaire. He was not that. He wasn't even close to that, right? Mm-hmm. Like when he inherited the team, he was not close to being a billionaire. Like, whoever's listening, if you Google the story about how they moved to Vegas, it was almost like let's just say he basically Mr. Magooed his way to Vegas. If you read the story about like how they got the stadium approval and all that stuff, it's like he pretty much Mr. Magooed his way to Vegas. Like to the point by the time he was done, they're like, how the f did this guy pull this off? I don't even think he realized what he was doing. And it's like he got a world-class stadium out of this. The team got to move, and the value went up. And it had nothing to do with his genius. Let's put it that way. So because of where the team is valued at now with this situation, that's I'm like, I mean, I guess it probably makes sense to do what you're doing in terms of just getting a new coach and trying to restore the culture and everything else. But I'm like, considering the fact that you were not at the time that when the approval and stuff went to get them out of Oakland and to move to Vegas and everything else, not to say they were going to be bankrupt or anything like that, but they were starting to run out of money.
All right.
Even with the Raiders, like people getting paid and stuff, that was an issue. Right.
Yeah, I think actually now that I remember, you're actually right. Yeah. I think that was one of the sticking points with Khalil Mack because they couldn't pay him the guaranteed money.
Right, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So at this point now, if you think about it, like the team is pretty good, right? The Raiders has the brand on they're one of the best brands in sports in terms of, even though they're kind of rogue or what have you, they're still the Raiders. You're in a thriving sports market. Where before, within the last 3 years, you have an NFL team, you have a hockey team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals, you have a WNBA team that is really successful. There's talks about having a baseball team move there. There's even talks at some point, maybe within the next 10 years, there may be a basketball team there. And then on top of that is Vegas, right? The stadium is a state-of-the-art it's worth over $1 billion. It's just off the strip. I'm like, is this now a good time to cash out? Do you wait till the season's over and you put it up for sale? Do you sell it to somebody like a Jay-Z? You know what I mean? Get a black order in there. I don't know. Do you sell it to Diddy? Do you sell it to, Magic Johnson? I don't know. These are the things that are like coming in my head when I'm watching this stuff. So that's why I'm like, is this a good time to cash out? I don't know. If I was him, I don't know. I would definitely give it some thought.
Yeah.
After what's happening.
I don't disagree with you. But considering that was his father's team, and that was basically his father's baby for how many years? I think he's probably just going to keep it in the family. I think he probably wants to pass it on to his kids. I mean, that's what I would do. Mm-hmm. Having an NFL team is hard. It's difficult to get an NFL team. You literally have to have billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to even afford any. Like the crappiest team out there is still going to be worth like $600-700 million.
Yeah.
So, people don't normally, it's not like these teams come up for sale every day. Usually something really, really, really bad happens, and that's why the owner needs to sell the team. But aside from that, usually, the family that owns the team keeps the team within the family for years and years and years. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's always a possibility, 100%. I just don't, I don't think that would be something that he would do, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's just plain devil's advocate, I guess, in a sense. But I wonder if that's like a boss, because most owners, especially sports owners, they own other businesses, right? There's very few owners that their only business is that team. Most owners, the team is like, it's like having like another Maserati. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like a hobby. You know what I mean? It's like most guys, they're not. The only family I can think, I mean, there's a few in sports, like, case in point, the Lakers, because the Bus family, that's all they do. Like,
right.
The all the siblings that own the family, like, the Lakers are their business. You know what I mean? But the Lakers is one of the most profitable and large, sport brands in all of sports, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So they can, so you can actually just live off that alone. You know what I mean? And just be fine. But. And I mean, and I guess the Raiders, in a sense, because of the name Raiders, and they've moved multiple times, since we've been watching football. But
absolutely.
But like the name, the brand is still sustained. You know what I mean? Like you still have diehard Raider fans that are never going to go away, and they travel. It's large. You know what I mean? Like it's a major thing. But I'm just like, because you weren't a billionaire prior to this, and as you were saying. They could barely pay Khalil Mack. That was one of the reasons why they got rid of him. Mm-hmm. When you're looking from that aspect, I'm like, hey man, here's your chance to be a billionaire.
Yep.
Yep. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know. It's something I would definitely be like, talking to with my partners and my family and that kind of stuff. Not saying I would do it, but but to say that you would be ignoring this right now, I don't know. I think that's kind of crazy. Just because, again, it's not like, I have an app company. I own Twitter. You know what I mean? I own Instagram. I own Google. I own, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's not something like that. But you're right. At the same time, it is so hard. Even those multi-billion-dollar billionaires and I mean, think about this, Roger. Okay, let me throw another scenario at you, right? Everything you said is right in terms of prestige, in terms of your daddy, like own the team and you want to keep it in the family. You want to pass it to your kids. All that's great. What if Jeff Bezos calls you?
Yeah.
Because what if he offers like $5 billion for this team? Do you say no? And the reason why I say that is because for somebody like Jeff Bezos, Amazon, you probably made that in a day.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. 100%. He makes millions of dollars a minute. So I would,
So that's what I'm saying. So if Jeff Bezos calls you and just says, hey, Mark Davis, or hey, Roger, I know this is a family run business. I got $5 billion. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. Hey, you know what?
Because
everybody has a number in their head, Calvin. Everybody has a number in their head.
Well, the reason why I say that again is because, not just the fact that he's never been a billionaire in terms of Mark Davis, but $5 billion, $6 billion, the Raider name still means something. You know what I mean? So this is not like the Houston Texans. Like, the Raider name still means something. So if he decides to sell the team, he's getting top money. It's kind of like Donald Sterling with the Clippers. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, the Clippers did not have a name. The Clippers' name for the most of their history was terrible, but because of the market that they're in and the type of team that they had that was finally like successful and exciting, you know what I mean? It was like must-see TV for Blake Griffin and Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan and all the exciting players they had on their team. They sold it for $2 billion. Which at the time was like completely unprecedented. You know what I mean? Like, so, everybody's value went up because you're like, the Clippers is historically one of the worst teams in pro sports, and they just sold for $2 billion because they live in LA.
Yep,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean? So that alone drove everybody's market up, right? So, and I mean, and the guy who bought it, who took it from them, I mean, Roger, that guy bought the team from with no help. He bought that cash. Steve Ballmer bought that cash. He's building an arena for the Clippers that should be ready in a few years. Cash, no taxpayers' money, straight cash. So this is a situation where I'm like, if you decide to like put a feeler, like if I was him, I would wait to see how the season goes. If they make the playoffs, God forbid, it's even better. Like at that point, I would like field secret offers and say like, hey, would a Bezos would the guy who owns Google, would Mark Zuckerberg be interested in the team? Because it's the Raiders.
No, I hear you, and I can't disagree with anything you said. What I can tell you is I just Googled the net worth of Mark Davis, and he's worth $500 million.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's nothing to sneeze at.
It's a lot. It's not like he's not a rich man right now, Calvin.
I'm making it sound like he's worth like $80,000. I know.
$500 million. A lot of it was inherited from his father, and he's obviously the owner of the team as well, right?
You said a lot of it, all of it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I mean, I don't know. See, I'm always the type of person. I'm like, you know what? What's the difference between $1 billion and $500 million? You're rich as shit already. He probably has his own island. He probably has his own jet. He probably has all these things, right?
Right.
So I mean, you could sell it and make another $1.5 billion probably,
or $4 billion,
or $4 billion. But then, what are you gonna do? What can $4 billion buy you that possibly $500 million to $1 billion can't? And that's always what my thinking is. And don't get me wrong, people do think differently, and I know with rich people, they're on a completely different vibe because they just want to get richer and richer and richer, and usually that's how it goes. But in my head, I'm like, I don't know. It's a good question though. I have no clue, man. I don't know. Maybe he would possibly sell. But I mean, he's a very, very, very rich man already. So I don't know.
Yeah, and like I said, prior to like a few days ago, who knows? Maybe that thought doesn't even cross your mind. You know what I mean? But now that it's here, now you're like, interesting. Maybe I don't do it this year. Maybe next year though. I don't know. Like you just, I don't know. I guess you see how it plays out. You see who plays out, and you see. Like I said, I would. I feel like it's The Wire, but I would definitely let a kite out. I would definitely like let the carrier pigeon, rumor carrier pigeon, just fly out the window and just see what the pigeon comes back with. I don't know. Just see what it comes back with.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. If he ever did put that team up for sale, I mean, I think there would definitely be some buyers that would be interested.
Roger, it would sell fast.
Absolutely,
it would sell immediately. They would not have like a shortage of pursuers for that team if you're willing to put it up for sale. Especially because where they are right now and how Vegas is picking up, especially in the sports market, and then again, because it's Vegas and gambling is changing and all that stuff in Vegas, betting is changing and stuff. I don't know, man. It's something like I said, it's something I I probably would have never thought about prior to. I really and truly, Roger, I probably didn't think about this until about a half hour ago. But but it just came to mind when we're talking. I'm just like, you know what? I don't know, man. Like this Gruden thing might present more opportunities than me just not paying them. You know?
Hey, that very well might happen, man. That very well might happen.
Now, here's my last question. I guess this could end on a funny note, but and I can't believe I'm even asking this. But where does John go from here?
That's a good question, man. Maybe he starts a podcast. I don't know. I think he's toxic right now, so he'll probably disappear.
I can't afford him. I can't afford him. Sorry, go on, Roger. I can't afford him. Go on.
I think he's probably going to disappear for a year, and then he'll pop up doing some sort of podcast or something. I don't know. Like he's toxic right now, but just because somebody's toxic now doesn't mean that they're going to be toxic a year from now, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure he has he knows a lot of powerful people, and I can't it's possible he could possibly do some commentating somewhere down the line, 3-4 years down the line. Somebody will give him a job because that's usually how it goes, right? The U.S. loves to put their stars on pedestals and then take them down and build them right back up again. They love a comeback story. So,
great point.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets an opportunity somewhere down the line to do something else. I don't think he'll be a coach again.
Yeah, I think that's over. Because even now, I mean, based on his age and the success that he was having so far, it was outside of the contract, take away the money. It was sketchy to say that he was having big success coming back in the second go around anyway. So
exactly.
So I agree with that part of it. And I can see where how this is gonna play out. Just in terms of, I'm thinking if I'm, his PR, right? If I'm his PR team, I'm like, be contrite, do an interview with somebody. You know what I mean? Somebody reputable, whether it's 2020 or Dateline. Yep. Or one of them shits, you know what I mean? Like one of them like tell all interviews, where you're showing contrition and you're being contrite. Go to some like racist and homophobic classes, you know what I mean? Like seminars to like, better your, you know what I'm saying? Like you can see where this could kind of go, you know what I mean? and then you continue to be contrite, and then in about a year or two. You're doing you're calling the games for the Lions. You're on Sirius XM. You pop up on somebody's show, you're doing that analysis, you still show, hey man, you still got it. You're still a good analyst and you're still being contrite. All of a sudden, yep. 2 years from now or within the next 5 years, you're gonna be driving in our car and you're like, hey, you know what? Put it on the John Gruden Sirius XM radio station. Because he owns the station. No. Notice I didn't say show. I said station because he's gonna own a station. Like you can see where this is gonna be coming down the line. So I'm like, I don't know, man. It all makes me a little sick.
Calvin, he's white. He's a white male in America. There'll always be a job for him. Sorry to say, but there'll always be a job for him. And the last thing that I'm gonna say about this is, I'm a big fan of MasterChef. That cooking show? Yeah. Right? Huge fan of MasterChef. So I was watching it this season, and who popped up on there? Paula Deen. I don't know if you remember Paula Deen from a couple years ago. I think it was about a couple years ago.
Oh, I do. I do.
She was notorious for having those parties, antebellum parties in Tennessee, where they'd have the black maids and the black servers, and then she obviously made some very racial remarks, and she was blackballed. She was canceled. But you know what? She's back. 2 years later, she's back. So it's all about who you know, and if you give people enough time to forget, it is possible to make a comeback. And I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make a comeback in a few years.
Yeah, and I mean, right now you're seeing the cancel culture modus is in full effect. You're seeing it already in terms of he got his name removed from the Buccaneers Ring of Honor.
I saw that.
Now, now players are saying stuff about him, like he's not needed in the league, and I'm like, it's sad to say. I just keep thinking, we'll see. We'll see. I just have this thing like he's gonna come back because of the pedestal that he was in. Like I said, if you're running his PR, you show contrition. You do the work, as they say, the quote unquote do the work. Like I said, it could go from having being on a show to owning your own radio station on Sirius XM.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right beside
100%.
ESPN style. Like you can kind of see the road to this already. You know what I mean? I'm already shaking my head.
Absolutely, and look at the circles he's hanging out with. I mean, he's rubbing noses with the Davis family
Owners.
I'm sure like he knows all the ESPN sports analysts. This guy's been a coach. He's been in the football league. He's been in the football league around the football league for probably over 30 years, possibly even longer than that.
Yep.
So I mean, somebody's going to give him a shot for sure.
Yeah.
It's just they just got to wait and they got to sit tight and they got to let everything blow over. I mean, that's just how it works. I mean, it's just how it works. White and American guy, a white male American. He will be back. Trust me when I say that. This guy will probably go off to Europe somewhere. He's already got $40 million inside of his bank account from Raiders Nation. He'll go somewhere. He'll buy him, go chill on an island somewhere for the next year, and then come back, start a podcast, and in about 2-3 years, he could possibly be an analyst. They'll be bringing him in part-time to give his analysis of football again, and or he'll start off with college and then move back to the NFL. They love a comeback story. He'll be back 100%.
That's almost a guarantee at this point.
Absolutely 100%. No doubt about it in my mind. Americans have very small memories. I'll tell you that much.
Well, on that note, this is very sobering, but let's wrap it up right now. So what we'll do is that, next week we'll do the show that we were supposed to do. Cause I want to do it every quarter, or at least every third of the season to do a wrap up of where we see the league so far. At least I wanted to do that this year, not including the playoffs that we do every year. So, and the Super Bowl breakdown and stuff. So, that was a show that we were supposed to do prior to this. So, I say, if it's all good with you, is come back next week. We do that. Sure. We do the show that we were supposed to do before Gruden came and blew up everybody's newscast and everything else, right? So,
okay, no problem, man. I'm down. Anytime you're ready, just let me know, man. Definitely.
All right, sounds good. But thank you for hopping on the Ave once again, as always. It's a pleasure. You could pour your own juice now, which you've been doing for a little while. I wish you would refill back at least a Minute Maid back in the mug, but it's all good. We'll get to that later. That's another time. Another another thing for another time, I guess.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me, Kelsey. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of the Ave Podcast. And thank you to Roger for hopping on this one. And like I said, he'll be back on with me next week to break down the first third of the NFL season. Look out for that one at the end of the week. Now, we got a lot of episodes coming at you with respects to the start of the NBA season. For starters, I have a new episode about the most intriguing players of the season. That episode will be out tomorrow, a Saturday special. And then the annual conference previews, which will be out on Monday and Tuesday. And I can't wait for you to hear them already. You can catch them all right here. Hit me with that 5-star love. Listen, rate, review, subscribe, leave comments, and check out my website for all of my shows at southshoreave.com. Once again, that's southshoreave.com. For Roger Calendar, this is Cal C, and you just tuned in to the Ave Podcast on South Shore Ave Radio. Until tomorrow, peace. We out.